I'm sorry for reading the same book again, but you're just gonna have to blame YouTube for terminating my channel. Diary of a Wimpy Kid, The Meltdown. We'll be reading the battle part of the story. There were some really lame flags too. Marcus Marconi's dad owned a sub shop in the center of the town that went out of business, and Marcus used the flag that used to hang in front of the restaurant open. I wanted to get closer to see who else made a fort, but when we got near the empty lot, Ernesto, Gabriel, and a bunch of other kids opened fire on us. Splot, blat. The empty lot was totally overcrowded, and I knew there was no way we could build a snow fort on the lot now, so our only chance was to take over someone else's. I got some old binoculars from my garage so we could scope things out without having to get too close. Things have gotten a lot crazier in the 5 minutes we were gone, though. Gabriel and Ernesto were in a battle with the Marley sisters, and a bunch of homeschool kids were going at it with the Garza twins. Amelia Greenwald and Evelyn Trimble had teamed up to fight Anthony Dinner and Sheldon Reyes, and Speedbump and Latricia Hooks were going at it with their fists. Pow! Swing. But I wasn't focused on all that. I was searching for a fort that looked vulnerable, and I found one. The Duplex Kid had built a pretty solid-looking fort, but as usual, it looked like they weren't getting along. Slurp, slap, slurp, spat, bat. I figured they'd wear themselves out fighting, and when they did, me and Riley could pounce, so we moved in a little closer and waited for the right moment. That's when I noticed a fort that didn't have anyone in it. The fort was sitting all alone on top of a big mound of snow. I remember what Dad said about the high ground, and this fort was in the perfect spot. I couldn't figure out why someone would build a fort and abandon it, but I knew this was our chance, a big chance. So we snuck around and climbed over the back wall. It turned out the fort wasn't empty, though. It belonged to Baby Gibson, who was inside with a stockpile of snowballs. But the second we stepped in the fort, it was under attack. Zow, splat, slip, zing, blap. The homeschool kids must have known about the high ground thing too, and now they wanted the fort for themselves. But when they came charging up the mountain, we drove them back, and even Baby Gibson got in on the act. Then the kids started coming up for us from every direction, and it was getting harder and harder to defend the fort. The Duplex kids split into two groups, and they came at us from the left and right, while Ernesto and Gabriel started using snowball throwers to snipe at us from their fort. And while we were trying to deal with that, some little kid from Mrs. Jimenez's play group tunneled up to the bottom of our fort and totally took us off guard. Pop. The next thing we knew, our fort was totally infested with preschoolers. And to cap it all off, the Marley sisters did a sneak attack from the rear, which was terrifying because those girls would go for the eyes. Scream! Me and Raleigh got driven off the fort and onto the open battlefield, where it was just total mayhem. Everyone was fighting everyone else, and any sense of order was just gone. Then something happened that made everyone stop. Joe O'Rourke got hit in the mouth with an ice ball and lost a couple of teeth. In our neighborhood, ice balls are on the banned list in snowball fights, so when somebody crossed that line, everybody knew things had gone too far. Representatives from all the clans had a meeting in the center of the empty lot to settle on the rules. Everyone agreed that ice balls were off limits, and so was yellow snow. We came up with a bunch of other rules, like how it's not okay to stuff snow in someone's hat and then put it back on their head. Once we agreed on everything, we were ready for the next round of battle. But while we were doing all of that talking, we didn't notice what was happening right behind us. The lower Surrey Street kids had snuck up to the top of the hill with their sleds, and by then, there was nothing we could do to stop them. Now, if there's one thing that unites us hill kids, it's when the kids from the bottom of the hill try to take what's ours. We don't have much, but we have the hill, and no one's gonna take that from us. As long as the plow was stuck, we knew those guys were just gonna keep coming. So we decided to do something about it. The only way to keep the lower Surrey Street kids from coming back up on the hill was to build a wall to block their path. And we didn't want to build some puny wall that they could just push over either. We wanted something that was solid, but we needed to make it fast because those guys were already marching back up the hill with their sleds. So we got some recycling bins from nearby houses and started building. Sprop. We made it a double wall, so if anyone broke through the first layer, they still have to deal with a second one. And we stockpiled a ton of snowballs. We weren't going to be able to get boiling oil, so I sent Riley up to his house to fill some thermoses with hot chocolate. The homeschool kids went out and collected icicles to stick into the wall, and the duplex kids threw together some snowmen to make it seem like there were more of us than there actually were. And when the lower Street kids came back, we were ready for them. When the guys saw our wall, they didn't know what to do. And when they got closer, we hit them with everything we had. Those guys didn't stand a chance. We sent them running back down the hill, and we celebrated our victory. But we celebrated too soon. 10 minutes later, the lower Street kids were back, and this time they were armed to the teeth. March, march, march. Most of them were wearing sports gear to protect themselves from our snowballs, and the moment I knew this was going to be an easy fight was when one of them threw a hockey stick. Twok. But still, we were the ones with the wall, and we had the higher ground. So we unleashed another round of snowballs. Whap, piff, blop, bap, spot. We held them off for a while, but those guys were some surprises up their sleeves. They hit us with a round of sloppy specials we were totally unprepared for. Splat, swash, swish, swoosh. If the lower Street kids had sloppy specials, that meant Mitchell Pickle was playing both sides. But we have to deal with him later, because we had a new problem. It turned out the sloppy specials were just a distraction to draw our attention away from the next wave of attack, which was coming at us fast. Step, 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 step. We hit the kids carrying ladders with snowballs, but before we knew it, they planted their ladders at the base of the wall and had started climbing their way up it. But Riley came back with the hot chocolate just in the nick of time. We emptied the thermoses out and the kids scaling the wall. Unfortunately, Riley hadn't added any water to the chocolate mix, so all it did was annoy them. Gasp, cough. I thought those guys were about to take control of the wall, but then Latricia, Hooks, and Speed Bump saved the day by dumping trash cans full of slush on them. Sploosh, swoosh. We didn't have a second to celebrate, though, because the lower Street kids were already launching their next attack. Half the 5th grade football team lives at the bottom of the hill, and they try to take the wall down with brute force. Wham, slam, bam. But the wall held up, and those guys wore themselves out with the effort. By now, everyone was tired. The sun was out, and it was actually starting to get warm. I really wished I hadn't worn my thermal underwear, because I was roasting with those extra layers. The lower Street kids kept coming at us, and we kept driving them back. And after a while, nobody had the energy to keep fighting. Finally, the other team turned around and went back home. At first, we thought that meant we had won, but those guys weren't giving up. They were just refueling. By now, it was lunchtime, and the kids at the bottom of the hill came back outside with sandwiches and snacks. And when some kids started handing out juice boxes, it was a little hard to watch. We were all pretty thirsty on the wall, and it was only getting hotter. Some kids started sucking on snowballs to stay hydrated, and they got through half of our stockpile before the rest of us realized what was happening. Sucks. We did an inventory of what we had left, and we knew we didn't have enough to fight off a major assault. So we split our remaining snowballs into thirds and put Anthony Denner in charge of protecting them. We kept waiting for the next attack from the lower Street kids, but it never came. After a while, we realized the strategy was to wait us out until we cracked, and then take our wall without a fight. Purvis Genshin was the first on our side to break. He hadn't had breakfast this morning, and so the sight of all the sandwich crusts lying on the ground made him crazy. He climbed over the wall and ran down the hill, and that was the last any of us saw of him. But the rest of us hill kids kept it together. 3 hours went by, but the lower Street kids weren't budging. In fact, they looked like they were settling in for the night. A few of them had a strong extension cords to their houses, so now they had electricity, and we saw the glow of their TV sets from where we were. Things were going from bad to worse on the wall. A lot of the younger kids were tired and hungry and wanted to go home, and I couldn't blame them because by now it was dinner time. Jacob Hoff said he was supposed to have a clarinet lesson at 6 o'clock, and if he missed it, his parents would be mad, and the rest of us could understand that kind of thing. Jacob's house was just a few doors down, and we told him if he made a run for it, we'd give him cover. He promised that the second his clarinet lesson was over, he'd come back to the wall with his coat pocket stuffed with granola bars, and fruit chews. That got everybody pretty excited, and we helped Jacob over the wall. Sure enough, as soon as he touched down on the other side, little lower Street kids opened fire on him. But we fired back and got Jacob to his front door safely. It turns out it was just a wasted effort, though. The thing about the clarinet lesson was just an excuse to go home, and we saw Jacob in his bedroom window. We knew he was never coming back with those snacks. Choo-choo. After that, the mood inside the wall was really grim. Some kids were crying, and I didn't see how we could hold out much longer. The lower Shuri Street kids must have known they had us on the ropes, because that's when they launched paper airplanes into our fort with notes written on them. Surrender now, and you can leave unharmed. That was too much for some kids to take. Even baby Gibson seemed shaken up, and I guess now he can read. A few minutes later, a kid came running toward us from between a couple of houses to the right of our fort, and we got ready to pelt him with a round of snowballs. But somebody recognized the kid, and we held our fire. It was Trevor Nix, who used to live on the hill. Trevor was out of breath and could barely get his words out, so we pulled him up onto the wall and waited for him to calm down. After Trevor got himself together, he told us what was going on. He said the lower Street kids were holding him captive, but he managed to escape. Trevor said the guys were planning something really bad, and he wanted to tell us before it was too late. He said the lower Street kids were creating a huge stockpile of snowballs, and when it got dark, they were going to launch a full-scale attack. But that wasn't even the worst part. Those guys were making their snowballs in the Guzman's yard, and that's the place with all the dogs. So that meant they were using Yellowstone and who knows what else. Everyone was pretty mad about what the lower Street kids were planning, but we were glad Trevor gave us the heads up. We told him that from now on he could sled on our hill anytime. Pat, pat. We agreed we couldn't just sit there and wait for the attack, so we started working on a plan. Half of us would sneak down the hill and launch a surprise attack on the kids making snowballs into Guzman's yard. The other half would stay back to protect the fort. We sketched a plan into the snow with a stick to make sure we were all on the same page. Attack team, wall, Guzman's yard. Me and Raleigh wanted to be a part of the action, so we chose to be on the sneak attack team. Our group loaded a few sleds with all the snowballs we had left, and we slipped over the back wall between some houses. It was getting dark now, so we knew the guys wouldn't be able to see us coming. But when we got to Guzman's backyard, we stopped to scope out the scene. Sure enough, there was a big group of kids making snowballs all out front behind a rock wall. When baby Gibson gave the signal, we launched our attack. Fling! But the other guys didn't even flinch when we hit them. As we got closer, we realized it was all a trick. Lower Street kids had created decoys to split us up, which meant we'd been double-crossed by Trevor Nix. We rushed back to the wall, but by then it was already too late. The wall was in ruins and we were out of ammo. It looked really bad for us hill kids, but then something happened that gave us hope. A group of kids was marching up the hill toward us, and when they got closer, I realized it was the safety patrol. For a brief second, I thought they were there to save us. Tweet, tweet. But they weren't there to help anyone. They were there for revenge. Usually the safety patrols aren't allowed to throw snowballs, but today was a Sunday, and that meant they were free to do whatever they wanted. Half the girls on the safety patrols were on the softball team, and anybody who says girls can't throw hard doesn't know what they're talking about. Zip, pow. The battle turned into the Surrey Street kids versus the safety patrols, and we outnumbered them 2-1. But then half the girls on our street switched sides, and it got really confusing. In the middle of all this, another group came down from the top of the hill. It was the Whirly Street kids, which must have gotten kicked off the golf course and came to sled on our street. And once they got into the mix, it was a total of free-for-all.